Hi everyone, it's Lyra. This is something I've been talking about doing for a long time, and it's more of a gift to some of my friends, something that I am hoping will be able to help them and any other trans girls who are worrying about this issue. The issue that I'm talking about is voice. I know that for many trans girls, one of the biggest barriers to effectively passing is voice. And voice can be a very tricky subject. When you start trying to work on it, you sort of have to be extra self-conscious, and that can make dysphoria worse. So it's a tricky thing to go into, and I would absolutely not recommend that anyone consider vocal work to be like a requirement for being trans or a requirement for anything. It's just that for some people, this sort of thing can help you pass. And passing is a complicated subject, but it is something that helps people stay safe and avoid harassment and avoid abuse. So in that respect, passing is kind of important, as frustrating as it is that it's a thing. So until society changes, I think it's good to help each other to learn how to pass when that's possible. And one of the things is voice, and I have regularly been told that my voice has come a very long way. I am usually gendered correctly, like 95% of the time over the phone. So I think I am in a position to speak on this issue. I have vocal training in a theatrical sense, so that ends up being very relevant, and we'll be drawing on some of that knowledge. So first, let me take a drink of water. This is very important. You have to keep drinking water, especially when you're doing vocal work. Lots of water, more water than you probably think you need, especially when you are practicing moving towards a new vocal range. Now, to give you an idea of basically how effective some of these techniques can be, I'm going to briefly use my former voice. Yes, I'm going to use the voice that I used to use all the time. And it's kind of embarrassing, but just so that you have an idea, here we go. Okay, it's sort of like this. That's maybe a little deeper than it used to be. I'm kind of overcompensating, but I think that probably gives you a rough idea. It might even be a little bit higher, something more like this, maybe even more like this. But it's down in this general range. And as you can probably tell, it actually takes more effort for me to speak like that now than to speak like this, because you practice and your voice starts to, like the vocal muscles naturally shift, and this becomes a more natural speaking range. So how do we get from this to this? I'm going to do my best to help you girls all learn that. So the first thing is, it's not something that you can just turn on without practicing. You have to practice a lot before it's going to be something that you can just flip in and out of. And like you saw, it was actually a bit of a challenge for me to flip in and out of it. So it's really a question of steady, dedicated practice and gradually shifting yourself into this new way of speaking. That being said, it might not be a great idea if you're not out to everyone, because once you start to shift your voice, it gets harder to sound normal to those people, to sound like your old self. So those are just some cautions and some incentives. So let's get down to the business of it. What we want to do is use a series of vocal warm-ups to help get us ready to go. And then we'll use some vocal exercises that help us find the correct placement of our voice, because it turns out that you can actually control with the subtle muscles inside of your vocal apparatus which part of your upper body and head the sound resonates in. That's what we call placement. And when you have it placed lower, you have that kind of guttural, male-sounding voice. And then when you place it higher, you get a more feminine-sounding voice. So that's what we're going to be working towards. But first thing is we have to learn a couple of basic vocal warm-ups. One thing that I like to start off with is sort of just humming up and down as high and as low as you can go, kind of like this. Once you have done that a couple of times, then you might try doing an open ah on thirds, which sounds kind of like this. And if you can't go that low or that high, don't worry about it. The idea is that you just want to go through your comfortable range. You don't want to push it too hard or else you'll give yourself vocal strain. So you do that a couple of times. You do the humming up and down a couple of times. You drink your water. And after you've done a couple of those, then it's time to get into the real physical mechanics of it. Now, there is a thing that people whose vocal cords have been affected by testosterone have, which is called a falsetto. And the falsetto is that really squeaky, fake, super high-pitched voice like the one I'm using right now that kind of makes you sound like a chipmunk in a cartoon show. So that's falsetto, and the thing about falsetto is that if you take it to that extreme, which is normally how you take it, obviously it sounds very cartoony and ridiculous, and it would nothing like an actual girl's voice. But it turns out that you can start from the falsetto and sort of lower it down to the place where you want to go. So the first step is to actually get to your falsetto. And if you don't know how to get to your falsetto on your own, I'm not exactly sure what to tell you, except that you really just want to think of like speaking from inside the top of your head, if that makes any difference. And essentially the physical process, if you're a physically kinesthetic learner, is that your larynx, your Adam's apple, is actually going way up inside. And that's what's making the voice sound so much higher. And once you are able to comfortably speak in a falsetto, or at least relatively comfortable, it's difficult to sustain for a long time, then what you're going to start doing is gradually lowering the falsetto. Even while you're keeping it, you have a sort of constricted physical sensation up here because of how high up your larynx has gone. You're going to hold on to that physical sensation of the larynx being flipped up, and you're going to just sort of gradually lower the pitch even as you hold on to that sensation. And one of the ways that you can do that, and I'm doing it right now, you can probably hear, is by changing the mental focus of where your voice is going. Instead of imagining it in between your eyes or in the very top of your head, you can start lowering it down towards your nose or even down towards your lips like I'm doing right now. And then suddenly, if you don't crack your voice because of so much hard speaking, you'll find yourself dropping into something more like a conversational tone. And that's the tone that I tend to use when I'm actually speaking to people. And that is really the core gist of it. You do vocal warm-ups, whatever vocal warm-ups you like. I just gave you 2 examples there. You flip up into your falsetto, you hold the physical sensation in here, and then you gradually lower your voice as you talk through the falsetto until you get to something that sounds a little bit more reasonable. And if you keep practicing this regularly, doing the warm-ups, flipping all the way up into the falsetto and lowering yourself down, if you keep doing that, you will notice an improvement in your voice. At least I did. I learned those techniques from another transgender blogger, Suddenly Sara. Props to you, girl. And I really think it works, and I just wanted to share it with all of you. There's many other things that you can do in order to clarify the vocal style, and I'll probably make a post about those soon. But for now, I just wanted to get this basic tutorial out there so that you can start to get the mechanics of it going. So hopefully you guys will find that helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye.